Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. It's such a beautiful day here in Northeast Florida. I hope wherever you are tuning in that your weather is also beautiful. I'm excited as we end Black History Month for us to delve into a health topic. The past few weeks we've gone a little different direction, but tonight we're going to delve into and end the month talking about heart health. And of course, I can't do this alone without my co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane? Where did he go? Oh, there he is. I was looking for Tyrone. Dr.
Yeah, I'm
Kane?
doing fine. Give me a minute. Our guest is trying to sign in, so I'll get right back with
Okay, dokie. Well, I should say this other our other the other person joining me is a guest, but not really because she's so on so frequently. Poor thing, we call her and she never says no, but she's such a wealth of information. And of course, I am speaking of registered dietitian, licensed dietitian, and all those other acronyms behind her name that she decided not to put on tonight. Linda Lockett Brown. How are you doing this evening, Linda?
Doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Linda, I want to ask you as we jump into to heart health, are you finding in your practice, and for those of you who are not familiar with Linda, Linda, let's first start out by telling them about your practice because they see you, but we've not really given you an opportunity to talk about Sinet.
hmm Okay. Signet Registered Dietitians and Wellness. We've been in business since officially 1990. And what we do is customized nutrition education. So we have an accredited diabetes education program. We have a recognized diabetes prevention program. But what distinguishes us from other places that you might have met registered dietitians is we start with a blank sheet. So you get a detailed assessment. I get an idea of what you are willing and able to do, what you can afford. I do an assessment, figure out how many calories, carbs, proteins you need. We set some goals, and then we develop a customized meal plan. So when you leave our office, you will have your meal plan, you will have your physical activity goals, and then we don't just leave you to the wind. We have you come in for follow up, and if you've met the goals, then it's up to you as to whether or not you come back. If you've not met the goals, then we kind of take a step back and see what needs to be changed. But the key to what we do is customization and personalization. It is customized just for you.
and let me interject something right quick because you guys may or may not know. So this what Linda is doing in terms of actually customizing a weight loss plan and or if it's not just weight loss, but a healthy plan, a healthy life plan is going to be crucial in the next ensuing months because one of the things that has happened over the past 2 weeks is that the GLP-1s and that GIPs that we discussed in the past, they're no longer going to be able to compound them at these local pharmacies anymore. So, and in the way the law reads, once the shortage is over, so is the compounding. So they're going to give them a certain date to get rid of whatever they've done already. And then you're no longer going to be able to get those GLP-1s, blah, 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 blah. So if it comes back, we go back to the old school to a great degree, which is the more reliable aspect, because one of the things even with the GLP-1s and remember I called them the GIPs and the GLIPs, even with those two diet aids, we still had problems when people reached their goal, and then maintaining what was the weight that was lost, as well as making sure that we're in a healthier state after we after we get to that weight loss point was critical, and that's one of the things that had not been being done. So now it's even more critical that Ms. Brown and people like her play a role in successful, not only just successful weight loss, but maintenance of successful weight loss and obtaining a successful, healthy diet, healthy lifestyle. So I just want to throw that in while her services are so critical at this point.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Kane, what led to the changes that you just referenced?
Well, the reason that people were able to get the GLP-1s and stuff like that in the first place is because there was a certain market surge for their I don't want to say needs, but but the desires of having them when it became so obvious to the general public, how much weight loss they could obtain. And then that led to a market surge in the request for those particular medications. When that happened, there became a shortage in supply because the manufacturers were actually just making them for diabetes, which is what they were designed for. They were making them for diabetes. But once the whole news came out about weight loss, then you got such a surge in the market demand that the supply couldn't keep up with it. And there's a law, I think it's part of the EMLA law, EMLA, that whenever there's an emergency need for a product, the government can step in and kind of commandeer the productive status, capabilities of different companies if they don't want to voluntarily adhere what the government wants. So drugs that are used for life-saving circumstances, which these drugs were used for life-saving circumstances, when drugs are, when it occurred that there's a major shortage throughout the United States, the government can step in and put on hold all patent infringement and allow manufacturers to come in and produce those drugs, if nothing but temporarily at least. They did the same thing when it came to the mask that we wore back with COVID. And the same thing with some of these anti-COVID drugs and COVID testing and stuff like that. They did the same thing with those, and that's why we wound up around.
Good, fantastic. All right.
So, does that answer your question, Ms. Turner?
Yeah, it does. And I'm reminded of a conversation that we had with Linda a while ago, which is why I'm glad we gave her an opportunity to talk about her business, is because, as she's often talked to us over and over and over again, that if only we follow those darn food groups and eat right and eat those things that don't have labels, that we wouldn't have some of the issues that we do have. But I'm gonna put that on pause for a moment and introduce Dr. Trevor Green. How you doing, Dr. Green?
Good, fine, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Good.
And let me correct you, is reintroduce Dr. Trevor Green, because he too has been a participant in the past on our show.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me again. Happy to be here.
We
are so happy to have you as we delve into the discussion about heart health. It's Heart Month. Everywhere I turn, I've heard something on the television, and Dr. Green and Linda, nowadays these TV stations are doing a better job, I think, of talking about heart health. Either they talk about knowing CPR, hands-only CPR, and some other things. So from your perspective, Dr. Green, what are the biggest misconceptions among both patients and physicians about heart health?
Well, it's a broad question. The biggest misconception I would think is that we don't pay enough attention to diet. We are unfortunately what we eat. and I struggle, of course, to address that. And if you were listening to the Super Bowl, or if you watch the Super Bowl, you would have heard a very interesting. I think it was Eli Lilly advertising their new weight loss drug, and they threw out a statistic that got my imagination. They said that 74% of the American population are obese. That was a,
Wow.
yeah, that was very interesting. Now, don't know how much of that is marketing,
Yeah.
or how much of that is designed for awareness, but it really captured my imagination. What I can tell you, a number that I know for a fact is that in the Caribbean, particularly the Southern Caribbean, the incidence of obesity, together with diabetes and hypertension, which would be is now endemic, looking at a number of 80% of the
Wow.
population.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty
Yeah.
impressive. And
Wow.
so, for the audience out there, what do we mean by diabetes? What makes you diabetic? And to get obese, my apologies. What makes you obese? We do something called the BMI, the Body Mass Index, which is an arithmetic calculation based on your height and weight. And one of the other things that I've just discovered too is that BMI is no longer a true marker. And there are other things that one has to interject in that conversation. But the good thing about it is it's a simple number. It's easy to acquire. And the number really, the cutoff number is actually 25. So if your value is above 25 kilograms per meter square, 25 is the number, and you get above that, you talk about overweight. When you get to be at 30 and above, you talk about obesity, being obese, and then greater than 35 is the morbidly obese. So those are the numbers. But to answer your question again specifically, the number one misconception with heart disease is it's linked to diet and
Mm.
and obesity.
Do you find that is more relevant or prevalent rather in females versus males, or do you think that it really doesn't matter?
It really doesn't matter. Women, of course, have a bigger challenge that is called childbirth, and pregnancy. And in fact, when I was coming up, our philosophy when it was being trained in the islands was that once a woman gets pregnant, she should gain no more than 20 pounds. 10 pounds for the baby at max, and 10 pounds for the placenta and fluid. Interestingly enough, I practiced that on my wife, who also is a physician, and I've gotten significant blowback over the years. But now she's thanking me because once you put on that poundage at pregnancy, it is very, very difficult to get it off. So you got to be careful. So that's about the only place that I will pick on women specifically. But generally, the diet is still the number one offending agent. If you don't pay attention to that, you are what you eat. And I'm sure Dr. Brown, Linda,
Linda Brown for right now, Dr. Brown by the end of the year.
okay, congratulations, good. But we'll give you a preemptive welcome. Yeah, yeah. That is the big thing, and I'm sure you would concur with that kind of tone.
Yeah.
So, Linda, what are the key dietary changes that have the most impact on heart health?
You know, we always talk about what you shouldn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about what you should eat. So there's a series of books called Eat This, Not That.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really like that approach. So you want, again, eat things that don't have a label. So what does that mean? You're eating fruits, you're eating vegetables, you are not drinking juice, you are eating the fruit itself. And then when you choose your grains, you know, people say, oh, don't eat anything white. Well, that still leaves a lot of room for concern. But if you're eating rice, you choose to eat whole grain rice, because that way you're getting the carbs you need, but you're also getting fiber. And so you want to eat a lot of high fiber foods, because when you're eating a lot of high fiber foods, when they are actually in the stomach, in the intestines, and they're all mixed together, the fiber will actually trap some of the fat and some of the cholesterol. It'll actually trap it and take it out of your system, so it never even gets absorbed at all. So the other thing to be careful about is saturated fat. And so saturated fat comes from meats, it comes from fried foods, it comes from restaurant foods. And so when people look at their cholesterol level, they think, well, I need to eat less cholesterol. Well, actually, you need to eat less saturated fat, because saturated fat tells your liver to make more cholesterol. So if you eat less saturated fat and less total fat, and then switch that out for fats that come from plants, then your body can manage. And so the other big piece of this puzzle, in addition to food, is actually physical activity. And I don't like to use the word exercise because people get all weird about that. But physical activity, when you are moving your body, it tells your liver, make more HDL. That's the good cholesterol. And the HDL will drop. It'll take cholesterol out of your system and actually drop that number. I want to go back to the body mass index, and just I have never put a lot of stock in the body mass index, because they looked at thousands of people to come up with those values, but the people they used to come up with the values didn't look like us. So is that politically correct enough?
That's
It
correct.
sure is.
That's correct.
They didn't look like
It's
us.
political. I mean, I can be not political enough if you want me to, but go ahead.
So there are some researchers that have been, they couldn't do it now, but they have published some things to show that if you are of African descent, then you get concerned at a body mass index of 35, which if you're not of African descent, you get concerned at 25. If you are of Asian descent, you will most likely be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at a body mass index of 25. And so that's true with people of Asian descent. So that would be like people from India, people from Pakistan. Those folks get type 2 diabetes, and you're looking at them thinking, well, you're skinny. But the measure that Dr. Green was talking about, those other measures like waist circumference, if you look at them, they're skinny, but they have a little pouch right around the navel, that visceral fat. And what I find interesting is, even though they are skinny or thin or normal based on the United States body mass index, their type 2 diabetes tends to be very severe. Very severe. So when my clients come to me and they say, well, what should I weigh? I say, well, we're going to pick a goal, but how we know we have met the goal will be based on your lab work. So when your labs say that your cholesterol is at an acceptable range and your triglycerides are at an acceptable range and your blood sugar is in an acceptable range, we're done. So then the goal will be to maintain where you are, because you don't want to do the yo-yo thing, because that damages the heart over time, doing all that crazy dieting.
Let me say this. I'm just going to throw it out there. You know, one of the things that when we used to write our paper, we did something about this a while back, in terms of the body shape for Black women and the body shape for white women. for non-black folks. And when you look at the BMI for some of these black women, it looked like they obese. But what they did not take into consideration when they came up with that whole BMI deal is that black women got booty, and they, you have to look at that as a positive. I don't want to say a problem unless I see a problem with using just BMI. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of black men tend to have more muscle mass. And so if you look at weight and, to determine that weight and height, Mike Tyson would have been fat. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have an ounce of fat on him nowhere. He was not obese anywhere. Mm-hmm. But because of his height and all the muscle he had, which is much more dense than fat, Mike Tyson would have been listed as him, as well as Michael Jordan, would have been listed as obese. So there's a lot of things. I was just trying to point out all the different things you need to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. But I do have one more question, and then I'm gonna shut up. The big question is low fat diet, low carb diet. I mean, people that keeps coming back over and over again. And especially as it relates to the harmful effects that sugar have, i.e. in terms of carbs, and then the harmful effect that fats have in terms of bad fats, i.e. especially saturated fats. Give me some nuggets to help go back to my patients and talk about that to them.
I get that question a lot. Mm-hmm. The meal plans that I design are actually high protein and moderate fat, moderate carbs. So whenever you get out of balance, your body starts making adjustments. And so if you are going to eat fruit, and I have some clients that really fight me on this. Well, I can't eat fruit because it has sugar in it. Mm-hmm. It's sugar from the fruit itself. And no, you can't eat the entire bunch of grapes at once. If it's one of those big, juicy, golden, delicious apples, you cut it in half and you eat half of it. So it gets to be about portion size. And so what people try to want to do is hang on to their favorite foods and then cut some other foods out so that they can still eat their favorite foods. And the things that I see people struggle with is fried chicken, fried fish, French fries. I've had 3 French fry discussions today. French fries. People want to eat cookies and crackers and chips and dip. And if you only had chips and dip for the Super Bowl, I am not going to get excited. But there are people that sit and watch TV every night and they have a bowl of something. Well, if that bowl of something is popcorn that you popped yourself in a brown paper bag with no salt on it, and your seasoning is Parmesan cheese, I'm not going to get excited. But if it's anything that came from a box or a bag down that snack aisle, then yeah, I get really excited. After our discussion about the GLP-1s, there was a memo that was published. And there was actually the lady that invented, can we say brand names?
I don't care.
And not get sued. The lady that invented Hostess Twinkies is still alive. And what she was doing was she paid someone on Ozempic to follow them around the grocery store. And they just followed them around the grocery store, and she wanted to see what they were eating. And what was so exciting to me was that the person was eating, they were picking fruits and vegetables, I think they might have gotten a loaf of whole wheat bread, and then they got some meat. That was it. There were no processed foods in the basket at all. So the reason why she's doing the research is she's trying to find a way to circumvent the benefits of the Ozempic, because the people that have been interviewed, if they were like a carb junkie or ate a lot of sweets, when they're on Ozempic, they don't even have a desire to eat it at all. So here's a food manufacturer going, well, we got to find a way to circumvent that so we can get our customers back, because they're actually losing some market share. And so you may say, well, why are the processed foods so problematic? It's because they're designed to be digested so quickly that it circumvents the control mechanisms that your body normally has. And they are formulated to stimulate the same pleasure centers in your brain that get stimulated when people take cocaine or heroin.
They actually did studies showing that sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah. So there was a company, Subway, wanted to go into Ireland, and so they had to submit their labels to the health ministry in Ireland, and they said, this is not a bun, this is cake. So by Ireland's definition, there was so much sugar in that bun that they classified it as cake. So anything you eat at a fast food restaurant, those buns, is going to be high in sugar, which raises triglycerides, and it's going to have saturated fats, which raises cholesterol. So it's kind of a double whammy.
Dr. Green, I wanted to ask you, and thank you, Linda, for that, for you naming all the things that I like. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But Dr. Green, I wanted to ask you, because I was having a conversation with someone the other day when I told them we were going to be talking about this. And what we were talking about is, when is it time to go to a cardiologist? Is it a certain age you should go, or is it based on your risk factors or your health conditions? Or is it okay to just continue? Sorry, Dr. Kane, I'm just going to throw you under the bus now. Is it okay to just have your heart health monitored by your PCP, or when is it time to add the cardiologist as a part of your medical team?
Before you answer that, you should have just added to it a good PCP.
A good PCP. Yeah. Before I get started, let me congratulate Dr. Brown, Linda Brown, on a fascinating dissertation. You touched on a variety of things. Any one of them could be the subject of one of these conversations. That was pretty beautiful. You taught me a few things as well too, which is a good thing, because I also want to learn when I come on these programs to go back to my patients and give them that further edification, because one person can't know it all. So that's a beautiful thing. Thanks for that input. Specifically, Jocelyn, if you get to see me first, a cardiologist, then you missed the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm going to be seeing you first. If I am seeing you first in the emergency room, the horses are long left the barn, and you're in serious trouble. So every person should seek the relationship. Notice how I put it, with a very good primary care physician. No question at all about that. Unfortunately, in medical schools, as we see it today, primary care physicians are not internal medicine specialists. That is now a kind of a euphemism. This is not where the majority of our medical students are aiming to be. Everybody wants to be a specialist. Everybody wants to be a highfalutin kind of stuff, and that's very problematic. Then within the hospital system, There are doctors who are referred to as hospitalists, and to all intents and purposes, they're technically hotel managers. That's monitoring in and out of from bed to bed. And I know I'm going to take a serious beating on making that statement. And at my age, I could take any kind of beating now.
Now you sounded like Dr. Kane, Dr. Green.
That's when you hang out too much. You hang out too much together. But you reach a point in your life where these things become pretty obvious. But that was taught to me by let me pass on that. But the older you get, the easier it is you get to see strange stuff. There's another word for it called BS. So we can call it out. So primary care physicians like that you have in people like Dr. Kane, people like Dr. Sykes, Dr. Perry, Wesley Mills, good African American solid primary care physicians is the place that most of us should start, which is why this program that is being by Dr. Kane is such an excellent opportunity for people to realize that there are indeed primary care physicians out there who are practicing the old-fashioned, literally internal medicine careers, and we have some very good people within the African American community, and it is the onus on us is to actually promote that. So if you get to the cardiologist first, you miss the boat. The primary care physician, and then you see the primary care physician is more comprehensive. Once you walk into the office of a cardiologist such as myself, the shortcoming that we have is that we are focusing on very, very tightly on that problem that might be cardiac in location. But there is a lot more that can be done to prevent you from coming to see me in the first place. And
that was going to be my next question, Dr. Green. What screening tests should physicians prioritize for heart disease prevention?
I'm going to punt to Rogers.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things.
And there's a reason I did that, by the way. Mm-hmm.
The best thing for one of the best ways of trying to figure out a good primary care physician is one who recognizes and admits that they will quickly know what they don't know, and then proceed to get you to somebody who may know or who does know better. That's a good primary care physician. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of screening of different factors that have been told to us and taught to us that this may be an issue in this, and people this age and that age, with that certain background. And I said all that to actually say, I can give you a list of testing that needs to be done, but will not be all inclusive. What I will do is give you a list of screening tests to be done to assist us in terms of determining how much help do you need from specialists? Where do I need to refer you to? That would include, Ms. Brown. When I bring you into the office, I'm weighing you, and that is a test to help determine what I need to do next. I'm taking your vitals. If there are regular heartbeats or there are slow heartbeats or fast heartbeats and stuff of that nature, those are tests. Okay, some basic numbers that will allow me to say, hey, your heart beating at 115 beats per minute. We don't know why. I don't see anything here right in front of me. I need to get you to a specialist. And then I can go and do some of these other lab tests with cholesterol, blood sugars, checking your kidneys out, a bunch of those things that all the primary care physicians that are listening to me, I don't need to tell them what that is because they're all smart. They black and they smart, be quite frank, which they listening to us. And so The mere fact that they listening to them make them smart.
Mhm.
So,
Thank you, Dr. Kane. So now we're gonna pause for our history maker moment. We can't not do this tonight as we end Black History Month. Dr. Green and Linda, don't go anywhere. Take a swig of water, take a breather, and Tyrone, hit it. We'll be right back in a moment.
Okay.
Hello, welcome to Pause for the Truth mid-show moment. Today is February 25th, 2025, and this is the last day of Black History Month. It is only befitting that we end this month with a conversation about the heart. The heart, a fist clenched tight, a symbol of strength, of resilience. This is the heart we know, the heart that endures, but the heart is also flesh, muscle, and blood. It beats within us, a steady rhythm of life. This heart is vulnerable, susceptible to disease. For Black folks, this duality resonates deeply. We carry the weight of history, of struggle and triumph. Our hearts, both metaphorical and physical, bear the scars. Heart disease doesn't discriminate, but it does disproportionately impact Black communities. Higher rates of hypertension, of stroke, of heart failure. This is our reality. Even in the face of adversity, brilliance rises. Black pioneers have long been at the forefront of medicine, fighting for health equity, demanding better.
Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, a name etched in history. In 1893, he dared to challenge the impossible. He performed the first successful open-heart surgery. Imagine the courage, the skill. He paved the way for modern cardiac care.
Dr. Charles Drew, a giant in his own right. His groundbreaking work on blood transfusions revolutionized medicine. His legacy, countless lives saved. His contributions, immeasurable.
These pioneers serve as a beacon, a testament to Black excellence, a reminder that we have always been healers, innovators. Our legacy continues to inspire. The body is a temple, a sacred vessel. It deserves to be treated with care. With reverence, we must become keepers of our own bodies.
Diet is key. Nourishment over indulgence, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, limit the salt, cut back on sugar. These small changes, they add up. Exercise, move your body, find what brings you joy. Walking, dancing, swimming, aim for at least 30 minutes a day. Your heart will thank you.
Regular checkups. Don't wait for a crisis. Know your numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar. Knowledge is power. Take control of your health. The heart is more than just an organ. It's the seat of our emotions, our spirit, our resilience. Just as we care for our physical hearts, we must nurture our inner strength.
Stress. It can be a silent killer. Find healthy ways to cope. Meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, talking to a therapist. You are not alone.
Community. Surround yourself with love, with support, with people who lift you up. Share your burdens, celebrate your joys. Together, we are stronger.
Self-care. Make time for yourself. Do things that bring you joy. Read a book, take a bath, listen to music. Nurture your soul. A strong heart is a resilient heart, a heart that can weather life's storms, a heart that beats with purpose, with hope, with love. This is the heart we must cultivate.
Wow, Tyrone does such a great job.
Yeah.
Dr. Green and Linda, I would like to start out by talking about, and we're going to start answering some of the questions that were posted, but I want to ask you, what are some risk factors that might increase someone's chance of having a heart attack or stroke or some other type of heart health issue?
Well, the general risk factors begin with diabetes. Before you get there, obesity. So you have to keep an eye on your weight. Got to keep an eye on your blood pressure. Hypertension, that's a significant risk factor. Your family history is also a good genetic marker that you really can't change. And so knowing your family history will give you a head start as to where you're going to be heading. I always tell all my African American patients that whether you like it or not, we're all destined to be hypertensive, and that's just a genetic thing. And then of course your lifestyle, and that comes to dieting, exercise, and the work environment, the stresses that you might be under, the things that you heard mentioned in that dissertation. Those are the common themes that spread through the common things that we need to look for.
And I'm glad you said that, and remind people that there are things we can do something about and things that we cannot do something about. In terms of genetics, we can't do anything about who our parents are. We didn't get a chance to choose them. So the things that we can do something about in terms of managing our stress. And I always remind Dr. Green, I always remind people of knowing their numbers, understanding their numbers. When given those numbers, have a conversation and say, what's normal, so that I can, if I'm abnormal, don't just say your cholesterol is abnormal, but tell me what normal is. And Linda is smiling because when I first met her, she told me to bring me your lab work, bring me your recent lab work. And then she took a look at it and helped come up with that meal plan for me. And Linda, is that typically how you work? You tell people, you look at their numbers, and I think it's just so important for people not just to know what the scale says and how much they weigh, but also knowing what those numbers mean so that they'll know what they need to strive for, where they are, and really have a medical team to help monitor those things.
Yeah, the numbers are critical, because I have patients that are, as I mentioned earlier, that are thin, but their numbers are off the charts. Their blood pressure is uncontrolled. They may or may not have heart disease, but if you look at the scale, they look fine. So it's not just about the number on the scale. And that's why if I look at your lab work, the lab work also tells me, do we need to go what I call kamikaze and have you become a vegetarian? Or can we do some modifications short of that? And if a person comes from a family history where nobody lived past age 55, then we're looking at vegetarian, because that will be the best you can do for yourself. But that's kind of everybody does not need to be a vegetarian in order to live healthy. But what you'll see in the media now, which is actually correct, is plant-based. And so plant-based does not mean that you don't eat meat. What it does mean is you eat more plants than you eat meat. So when they did the very first guidance for food, it had the four food groups, that made the meat 1/4 of the meal. And then vegetables were 1/4, the starch was 1/4, and then the fruit was 1/4. Well, that was out of balance to begin with. It was too much meat. And so when I grew up, the meal was planned around the meat. And so a healthier way to do that is to put the fruits and vegetables and make the meat not an entree. Just the meat will not be the entree. The main part of the meal is going to be the fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And unless you are a Jaguar linebacker, you do not need more than 3 ounces of meat for good health. So that's including men. So if men get 3 ounces, that means women get less than that. And
that's about the palm of your hand, right? Isn't that how you measure?
I don't do palms of hands because you got a 3 ounce palm. No, I actually have people, until they get good at it, weigh the food on a scale, because human beings We trick ourselves with our eyes. So I actually have people just get a scale and weigh it until you get comfortable with what 2 ounces, 3 ounces actually look like. I just have people weigh it so they don't get
So they'll
themselves in
know.
trouble.
Linda, there was a question in the chat that I also wanted to bring up about, in terms of what diet is really best. Is the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, a vegetarian diet? What is the best diet for heart health?
It's an individual question. If I had to pick a diet that would fit most people, it would be the Mediterranean, because it has the right mix of monounsaturated fats, and then it really focuses on fish and chicken rather than beef. And if you have a steak occasionally, you shall not surely die. But if you're having steak 2 or 3 days a week and you're eating burgers for lunch most days of the week, that is a totally different conversation. Totally different. So there is no one specific diet. And actually, when I look at the labs will guide me as to where we need to go. But generally with my meal plans, even though the protein is not just coming from meat, it's also coming from dairy, low-fat dairy. Generally, the high protein works for many people, not all, but for many people, because it keeps you from being hungry. So you do get hungry, but you get hungry every 2 to 3 hours rather than eating this little tiny breakfast. And then at 7, and then by 9 o'clock, you're so hungry you could eat a cow. So that means that the breakfast meal didn't have enough protein in it. So having adequate protein lets you space that out. Now, if a client has stage 3 or 4 kidney disease, then high protein is off the table. So we have to do it a different way. So for them, you get the proteins, but you get them from plants. So plant-based sources of protein do not affect the kidney in the same way that animal-based proteins do. And so it's hard. It's hard to do, but it's doable.
That's why I want to give a plug at this point, and we always try to remind people, know what your health insurance plan covers. Some health insurance plans will cover you going to a registered dietitian. Some don't, and if they don't, advocate for it. Right? Go to work and say, I need to go and see a registered dietitian because I have a family. If you don't have diabetes or high blood pressure, for instance, but you have a strong family history of it, then say, hey, I want to avoid that. Is it possible that we can add that for me to be able to go and see a registered dietitian? And Linda, when we talk about the different types of foods, by the way, typically when people think of protein, they think of meat. And the question that's being asked, why do we need meat? They don't think about getting protein. I don't think I've ever heard you say protein and milk in the same sentence, to be honest with you. But I know we talk about beans and things as a source of protein, but do we really need to eat meat, or is it just something that's a part of the American diet?
It's a really good question. Most cultures are not meat-based. Most cultures aren't. They either worship the cow, so they wouldn't dare eat it, or they live in an area where it would not be possible to raise animals because that's so labor intensive. So most people in the world are plant-based. Now, the reason why I don't try to steer all of my clients in that direction is because if you're going to not eat meat and just go plant-based, you have got to be willing to spend 2 to 3 hours a day in the kitchen. Because if you go to the grocery store, they have these supposedly soy-based things in the freezer section. And when you look at the ingredients, I look at it and I go, why bother? Because they add a lot of oils to it, and they add a lot of the wrong oil because they're trying to make it feel and taste like the original product. There's no point to that. So, but if you are cooking, you can control all of that. But if you want to be vegetarian or vegan, you've got to be willing to cook, and you've got to be willing to plan, and you have to readjust your mind as to what is satisfying. You're going to have to redefine that. So my meal plans are high protein, but all of the protein doesn't come from meat. It also has 4 servings of dairy in it, 4 servings of low-fat dairy, which is a significant source of protein, but it also gives you calcium, magnesium, and calcium and magnesium control your blood pressure. So is it possible to be of a certain age, and I don't dare tell my age, but is it possible to be of a certain age and not be hypertensive? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You can be, I'm just going to say you can be over 55 and be Black and not have hypertension. It is doable. But you do that with the way you mix your minerals in your meals, and dairy is a significant part of that. So
I would like to just one quick thing mention, or 2 things. One of the listeners asked about is, are we saying that pharmaceutical companies target addiction more or less to food,
yes,
prepare food to target addiction? Which I wrote back and said, absolutely. I'm not even sure how many pharmaceutical companies may own food producing businesses. Okay, because that helps keep them in business. The more salt, the more sugar, the more you need my drugs. Okay, so you can't say that that's not occurring.
That's horrible, Dr. Kane. That's horrible.
I know it is, but I ain't the one doing it. So I'm not.
Well, the other thing too is, there are many foods manufactured in the United States of America that are not allowed
in other
Europe,
countries.
Canada, and even China will not take some of our processed foods.
Yes.
So if you looked at, the example I like to use is Ritz crackers. If you buy Ritz crackers from Europe, there are 5 ingredients. That's it. You buy Ritz crackers from the United States, there are close to 20 different ingredients.
Wow.
Well, look at Chick-fil-A in their sandwich. Chick-fil-A Chick-fil-A sandwich has 52, 54 ingredients. I mean, the chicken didn't come with all those ingredients, but they needed to put them all in to do just that. The other thing I want to make sure I get before we get off, the only other thing I want to make sure was that, and Dr. Green, you can correct me, 5 major risk factors to, I'm going to call it sudden death, either having a heart attack or stroke. I include stroke as being one of them. High blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, diabetes, which is considered to be a risk equivalent, meaning that if you have high blood pressure, meaning that if you have had a heart attack, but your exact twin brother has not, but your exact twin brother has had diabetes but no heart attack, y'all got the same risk for another heart attack. Okay. And then the other one is smoking. And what did I leave out? Your family history, ain't nothing you can do about that. But at least 4 of them you can do something about.
Right. If I can interject at this, I noticed flashed up on the screen. And by the way, I agree with that, Dr. Kane. I saw flashed up the screen a comment from our most erudite colleague, Dr. Jones, who made a very interesting statement there. He's never seen an adult cow drink milk. And I would add to that, everybody says, you know, I want to be as strong as a bull, but all
But
the
bull
bull
doesn't
eat is
drink milk.
grass. How do you reconcile that, Linda? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know they could take
No,
all night on unravel that, but
Yeah.
dairy is the issue. How do we address dairy?
The way I address dairy is as a way to have a protein source that if it's low fat dairy, you can get the protein without the fat that you would get from meat itself. So I am a pragmatist, understanding that for someone to be a vegetarian and get all of their nutritional needs will require a lot of time. And the pragmatic part is most people are not going to do that. So if you include dairy, particularly because it has the correct ratios of calcium and magnesium, we have data to show that if you eat dairy, because the DASH diet has dairy in it, significant amount of dairy, and the purpose of the dairy is to get that calcium and magnesium ratio correct in the body, and that lowers blood pressure. So there's a question that says not a big difference between low fat milk and regular milk. Yeah, there is. Whole milk is 3% fat, 2% milk is 2% fat, 1% milk is 1% fat, and then skim is actually a half a gram, so they count it as 0. The difference is if you drink an 8-ounce glass of skim milk, it's 90 calories. I'm not going to get excited about 90 calories. If you drink an 8-ounce glass of whole fat milk, it's 130 calories. I do get excited about that because for that same 140 calories, you could have a low fat dairy and a fruit for the same calories.
Let me throw out something here. We're speaking about dairy in a very broad and general way. What exactly is dairy? And if you listen to this conversation, we're really picking on milk only. But could you drill down a little bit more on what is dairy?
So glad you asked that. So because a lot of us can't drink liquid milk because we're lactose intolerant. So an alternative that's in the dairy category would be yogurt. And if it's yogurt that has live active cultures, the lactose level is very low. It's very low. Most of my clients that are lactose intolerant can eat yogurt. They can eat hard cheese. They may struggle with cottage cheese, but cottage cheese, yogurt, and hard cheeses all fit in the category of dairy. Now, a lot of people have gone to oat milks, almond milks, soy milks, and I generally don't recommend any of those because what they did is they added enough calcium to those to make it equivalent to cow's milk, or dairy from a cow. But what they don't have is they don't have the magnesium, and the pH is wrong. So in those alternative milks, the pH is not one that will allow your body to even absorb the calcium that they throw in there. So I don't see those as equivalent. Plus, they generally will add sugar, and they will add gums as emulsifiers so that milk has the same mouthfeel as milk from a cow. And those emulsifiers, we now know, destroy the intestines. For a lot of people, they literally destroy the intestines. So
Linda, food is so complex.
And while I have you
It's
on,
so complex.
while I have you on, Linda, where did you put the regular egg?
I didn't catch the last part.
Where do you put the regular egg? Fried?
Oh, I put that as a meat.
Okay, so you put eggs. Okay.
Yeah, so I put egg in the meat category. So if a person has to watch their cholesterol, then I'll just have them eat one egg with the yolk and one egg without the yolk,
Hmm.
because there's some nutrients that are in egg yolk that the nerve cells in your brain need it to form part of the coating of the sheath. So it may actually decrease the risk of Alzheimer's. Now, we're not talking eating 6 eggs for breakfast. We're not talking about that, which some people would want to do. And for my clients that have bad teeth, an egg is an easy way to get your protein. If you have no teeth, you can still eat an egg. So I have clients that are in their 80s. There's no benefit from a nutritional standpoint to limiting cholesterol if you're in your 80s. A larger issue with people in their 80s is eating enough food at all.
Perfect.
So, but it is so hard to get those folks to not see eggs as the enemy.
Yeah. Hey,
Kinda
Linda,
hard.
there was a question about whole wheat bread versus multigrain bread. Did you see that? Yeah, is there a
I
difference?
did. So there is a difference. And so the first thing you look at when you look at bread is you look at how many grams of fiber it has. So you want to get 3 or more grams of fiber per slice. So if you get 3, let's say you get a bread that's 3 grams of fiber per slice and you use it to make a sandwich, you have 6 grams of fiber. If you're trying to reach the 38, which I try to get all my clients to 38 grams of fiber, you are well on your way just with the sandwich.
A day?
Now, so let's say you have a whole wheat bread that's 3 grams of fiber, and you have a multigrain bread that is also 3 grams of fiber. The multigrain bread is going to be better. And the reason is those little seedy things that they put in the bread that my husband is not real fond of. Each one of those seedy things has trace minerals that are hard to get in other places. And those little seedy things have a lot of fiber in it. So that's where part of the fiber comes from. So if the total fiber is the same, the multigrain is going to be the better choice.
Wow, I tell you what, it sounds like you could do a course in dietetics for the regular soul, because again, food is so complex. Dr. Green, we didn't even talk about the oxtails, by the way. I remember that discussion before about the oxtails and your wife, what she was saying about the oxtails. But anyway, I mean, this is a very complex topic. But I would like for you all, because we like to be respectful of your time, I would like for you all to talk. I want to ask you one more question. When we talk about managing chronic health conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, so on and so forth, talk about real quickly the importance of having a medical team and the importance of having different people to help you manage it, because it is so complex. Dr. Kane knows a lot as a primary care physician. Dr. Green knows a lot as a cardiologist. Linda knows a lot. Explain to people why it's great that you're going to Dr. Kane on a regular basis, but it's also great that you have other parts of your team, and even the team's members that are not on, like the personal trainer to help you, or exercise physiologist, or the behavioral health person. Can any of you speak to that? And that's question is to all of you.
Yeah, let me tell you probably in a snippet how I would imagine it. I see the primary care physician as the orchestra leader. He's not playing any instruments, but he's putting everybody together in the same tune, in the same direction. Very, very important. I have a tremendous reverence for primary care physicians, and I feel really sad that most of our medical students are shying away from practices in internal medicine and family practice, primarily because there is not as sexy as all the other specialties, and reimbursements, which really should be much better, is not the case. But that's how I see the center of the sport being the primary care physician, and then he can harness the firepower that he needs for that particular individual to send them off for that specialty care. And it is incumbent upon your professionals, your cardiologists and neurologists and the orthopedics and everybody else to get back in contact with have that information, get back to the primary care, because that's the guy who has the more comprehensive approach to the management of the patient.
That's a great way of putting that, Dr. Green. Thank you. Orchestra leader, Dr. Kane. I'm going to start calling you that, the orchestra leader.
Maestro.
There you go.
You know, this is a lot, because we didn't talk about the latest advances in managing or treating heart disease. There are a whole lot of other things we didn't talk about. And to echo on what Dr. Kane often says, we should go longer than an hour, A, or B, he says there's always a part B to this discussion. So thank you both for your wisdom, your insight, your just everything. This is a wonderful topic. I've gotten text after text. So if you see me looking over, I'm looking at texts I'm getting from people saying, great discussion, great feedback, great information. Both of you are just a wealth of knowledge. We do like to end the show by offering you the opportunity to share your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic. Maybe there's something that you wanted to say, but me or Dr. Kane was talking too much and you didn't get a chance to say it. So I would like to start with you, Linda, if you would give your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic.
My final thought is kind of what Dr. Green was saying at the beginning. If he sees you in the emergency room, we're already behind the curve. So I would like for people to think about heart health beginning with their children. So it is not okay. It is not okay to feed your kids chicken nuggets and French fries on a regular basis. If you do it, on the weekend our kids only had that on like a birthday, maybe. It is not okay to feed your kid that, because there have been children that have been unfortunately in car accidents. And when they did the autopsy, they found plaques in their arteries. These kids were 6 years old. So you want to start early by teaching those good habits to your children. And anybody that has kids, if you're telling them to do something, you better be doing it too. So if you want them to eat vegetables, because when parents bring their kids to me, they won't eat vegetables. And I just ask them a very simple question. Do you eat vegetables? And usually the answer is no.
No.
So if we say that whole grain bread is healthier, then that's what you buy and have it in the house. If there's no white bread in the house, then no one can eat it. And so I would like to back this prevention up all the way to childhood. And so I know you can have a discussion about what's in the school lunch and all of that. I was a school food service director. We had healthy food, and I made a 430% profit serving healthy food. But the food tastes good, it looked good, and we started by educating kids when they were in kindergarten, and they got prizes and stickers for eating healthy food. So I made it cool to eat healthy, but it was intentional, and I love the word intentional. So when people have little kids, do the right thing for your kids by eating right. And yes, I know that healthy foods cost more. I get that. But if you think about any medication that a cardiologist will prescribe for you, any medication that Dr. Kane will prescribe for you, depending on what insurance you have, you're going to have sticker shock when you get to the end and the pharmacist says, well, your copay is. It would be better to spend the money on the food.
Yeah.
So that's my takeaway.
It'll be about the same amount of money as that.
I always say pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Dr. Green, what are your final thoughts?
Well, childhood obesity is an issue, and you said it very well, Linda. The kids are not going to do what you tell them; they're going to do what you do, and therefore the example has to start from there. But that is a whole nother topic onto itself.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. What are your final thoughts?
First, I want to thank the guys for coming on, ladies and gentlemen, for coming on. You guys are always appreciated. Definitely need a part 2 because we do need to get to the latest advances in heart health, Dr. Green.
Yes.
So so we will be looking for part 2 pretty soon.
Right.
A couple of things I want to go over real quick. Fruit metabolism. A lot of times, if you eat the right fruits, the amount of fiber in those fruit will help negate the amount of calories in the fruit juices. So go ahead and eat those fruits, as Linda, Miss Brown has stated. Let's see. Oh, let's not forget cholesterol is needed for brain metabolism and for brain function. We have to have some certain level of cholesterol. We just got to keep everything in perspective. So we're not saying never ever any cholesterol. We just have to keep things in perspective as to how much cholesterol, where you're getting it from, blah, 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 the other stuff associated with it. And I want to make sure that people, and I appreciate what Dr. Green said about primary care physicians, but we need good specialists. That's why we depend on smart, intelligent specialists. And we usually find our niche, who we can, to go to. I don't care if they blue-green. If they know what they're doing, I'll use them. But I especially like the ones who can appreciate the things that African Americans go through, which usually means they know what they're doing. So they kind of join, lockstep in that. One last thing is when and I just thought about that as Linda was giving her summation. One thing about some of these foods we see these days is the change in which the ingredients that they have. Okay, we mentioned them, but I just want to point out like one specific fact. There's been many reports where people have found a McDonald's cheeseburger or some McDonald's French fries that are years old and don't look like they're older than day 2. Okay, and that's because they got a huge amount of preservatives in them to prevent bacteria from growing. Well, when that get in your gut, what it's going to do to the normal flora, the normal bacteria in your gut, including the ones that produce GLP-1 and GIPs. It's going to give you the obesity, because you're getting rid of the good bacteria, along with all the other issues that we have. So I want people to take in mind, it ain't just about how much calories they have. It's how much plastic is in there and how much antibacterial elements that are in there that's killing off your normal bacteria in your GI tract, which we consider to be your second brain, because it sends messages to your real brain all the time about what you can and cannot do, especially when it comes down to what you eat, as Dr. Green mentioned earlier, in reference to that. And last thing is, this Friday is boycott anybody day. This Friday is boycott any and everybody day. Don't spend no money. So they can see what we're all about in terms of where we spend our monies, how we spend our monies, and that we're not just going to sit back and give you my money while you give me your, okay, I'm on, this is not a bad word. I'm not going to pay to kiss your ass. So spend your money carefully where you decide to spend it.
Right.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Dr. Green. And of course, thank you, Dr. Kane. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this episode of Heart Strong, the Road to Better Health. As we've learned today, heart health isn't just about avoiding disease. It's about making informed decisions every day, whether through proper nutrition, regular exercise, or staying proactive with medical checkups. Small changes can lead to big improvements, and it's never too late to start. For our healthcare professionals tuning in, let's continue working together to bridge the gap between medical care and lifestyle changes, ensuring that our community have the knowledge and resources they need for better heart health. And for our listeners at home, take what you've learned today and apply it to your daily life. Prioritize your health, advocate for yourself, and support those around you on their wellness journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Pause for the Truth. Tell your friends to watch this episode. It'll be ready in a couple of days or maybe in 24 hours if Tyrone is having a good day. Look for the rebroadcast of this podcast and know that you can do it. It may be difficult. It may seem daunting, but small changes work. And as Linda mentioned, the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, we're all used to looking up good movies, good food, good restaurants, good clothes. Look up the DASH diet, DASH, and the Mediterranean diet. Thank you for tuning in to Pause for the Truth. Tune in next week as we enlighten you and hopefully enlighten others. Take care.
And there we have it, another episode of the Pause for the Truth podcast in the proverbial books. Our heartfelt thanks go out to every one of you who took the time to tune in. Mark your calendars, we're here every Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the golden ticket? Subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's your passport to all our latest episodes and exclusive content. A special mention to the wizard behind the curtain, Tyrone Jackson from Call Tyrone IT Services. His technical prowess and unwavering dedication are the backbone of this podcast. Next week, we'll be back with more. Until then, tell your friends, tell your family about our show. Your support is invaluable. And remember, keep that curiosity alive. Keep seeking the truth.